For the city of Eugene, and then with me is Mark Shoney, who's the city engineer. We're in the Public Works Department Engineering Division. And I thought we could just start by going around and actually let me just ask a question first. Why don't you raise your hand if you were involved in the last time we had a process looking at Jeppesen Acres? Okay, so probably about 60% to 2/3. That's great. Because we're going to want to talk about that at some point. So I would say, we're going to maybe I want to have people go around and introduce themselves, say like what your address is or what part of the street that you live on, and just very briefly say why you decided to come to tonight's meeting. So why don't we kick it off over here and we can work our way down.
Okay. I'm Jim Holm. This is my wife Pamela. We live at 2161 Jeppesen Acres Rd. And I'm here because I want to find out what the hell's going on.
Right on, James. Right on.
What he said.
I'm Jarl Berg. I live on the corner of Gillum and Jeppesen Acres Road, and I've got a 6-year-old, and I watch a lot of kids go up and down that street very unsafely every day. So I'd like to personally see sidewalks. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Tim Duncan. I'm working at Windermere. That's why we're here. I'm here because I have kids and I want to see sidewalks as well. Yeah.
Where do you live?
I'm 2263. I bought the house that's in the Panhandle lot across the street from where those new houses are being built. Go down that street.
Oh, yeah.
Or there's 2 houses.
Cool.
Yep.
And sure.
That's all I have. Yeah.
Tim's going to be passing some sign-in sheets around, so just to give folks a heads up.
Good evening, my name's Ian. I'm here with my wife Molly. We live at 2178 Jeppesen Acres Road, and we also have a child and like to see sidewalks.
And the lights. I'd like to introduce lights.
Were you dodging the cars?
My name is Christopher. I'm at 2158. It's the 5th house on the right coming from Gillum. And I'm just been there for quite a while. My dad's there again. And I'm very interested in what's going on and how it's going to affect us and everybody that's making use of the street.
Yeah. I'm Marilee Shaw. I'm at 2145 at Jeppesen Acres, the Kern's old house, and just want to know what he said.
I'm Tim Mitchell. I'm at 2155 next door to Marilee, and this is my wife Mario. And again, just wanting to see what the latest greatest is and what we can do to improve both the condition of the streets as well as the sidewalks. Oh wow.
Good.
We just got a lot bigger.
That's awesome. I think it was.
Get out there and sit back here.
These ones are very comfortable.
Here, why don't you take my spot?
There's 3 right back here.
Actually, take this back here, and I can stand.
Stand up right now. I was
Please leave down
I live down that drive. Yeah, I live in all of those.
Okay, so where were we?
Green bus, that's right.
That was the last one.
Okay.
My name is John Fisher, and I live at 2197 Jeppesen. I'm interested in what's going on and why we're revisiting the situation, and whether or not we'll have input as citizens that was somewhat, that wasn't happening last time. We were told one thing, and then other things were actually possible. So I'm interested if we get any input.
Is there any way to hear better back here?
Do you want to sit up here?
John Fisher's saying.
There's 2 seats right here. Do you want to sit right here?
Well, everybody needs to hear.
Yeah.
He's talking that way, and
Okay.
So people just try to talk towards the front, I guess.
maybe you need to be.
If it's general, you'll have to stand at the front and face the audience.
I'll sit over here. I just felt like I don't have an escape route. But that's fine.
My name is Terry Brown. This is my husband Larry. We live on Flag Lot, or is there somebody else called something?
Panhandle.
Panhandle. Depends on what state you're from. Anyway, so I was concerned when we first moved in that we were having a water drainage problem
And we called in a plumber to see if he could put in sump pumps and stuff, and discovered that we have no access to a storm drain, even though we're paying for it. So I went around asking neighbors about the road and storm drains, and found out that the last time this project had been brought up, the city got a little carried away with the Taj Mahal of all streets, which was very expensive. And they just wanted what was at the one end to be completed on the rest of the way, with same one sidewalk, speed bumps, storm drains, and not elaborate lighting systems and planters and stuff.
No park, they didn't want parking, right?
What?
They want to cut out parking?
Yeah, there was a provision for
That was one of the options.
Well, I've been on one of the streets that does allow parking, that does have curbs. And when people park on both sides, people can't get out of their driveways, so they all have to back in.
Yeah.
So
I have
that,
all the, I don't know if anybody else kept all the paperwork
Wow.
last time, but I have it all. Been through this.
I got the file.
Good job, Erin.
Yeah.
Let's keep working our way down.
Okay, I'm Linda LaBerge. I live on the Panhandle or setback lot next to Terry and Larry. And I did participate in the last meetings, and I am most concerned about the expense that the homeowners potentially are faced with, and that's why I want to participate in this round as well.
Ari Gluz, 2204, the Purple House on the street, and just basically find out what's going on.
My name is Bill Shandell. I live on 2259, and I know people will have young kids interested in sidewalks, and just the general condition of the road is concerning me.
I'm Claire Willett. I live at 2203, same flag lot as these people here. And I have a dog, so I would like to have sidewalks, but I don't need parking bays and water gardens and all that stuff. I want to keep it reasonable, but healthy and safe, and helpful and safety conscious. Because I just see so many kids walking down that street every day. And I've been walking down the street with the dog and almost gotten myself and the dog killed with people dropping kids off in the morning between 8 and 8:30. It is an amazing
zoo.
Traffic jam. Yeah. I can't even cross the street right now.
Pardon me for being a little bit late, and I don't know what the format is here.
People are just introducing themselves, saying where they live. And
Everybody?
Just, right, and just very briefly saying why you came tonight.
Well, I came, I'm Shirley Portis, and that's Bill Portis, and we live at 2275 Jeppesen Acres Road. And I call it our logging road because it's just probably better than one. And
Not much.
I mean, it's not as good as one.
Yeah, right. Smoother.
And I was just floored with this bays and in and out things. I hate those. And what we went through last time, and I don't know why we pay taxes for the mess that we've got in front of our house. And yeah, I'm just really in hopes that we can have something decent that won't decrease our property value so badly. I mean, the road is just it's a dump. Everything, it just makes everything look real shabby.
My name is Nicholas Laszlo. I live at 2174. I've lived there my whole life. We talked the other week about this.
Okay.
Like I said, my parents have lived there since the 80s, so it's a big deal on what's going on in the community, how much this might cost the homeowner. I know originally there was potential cost was directed towards the amount of street frontage you had, not evenly split amongst everybody on the street, which is clearly not the right way to be doing anything. And the city clearly also needs to be putting in on this too, since we pay our taxes, and I'm sure more than 50% of traffic on the road is people driving through the neighborhood, not people that live on the street.
Definitely.
John Fisher has done his survey of how many cars went down the street that didn't even live in the neighborhood.
Yep.
Isn't that right, John?
66%.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, right.
Quick way to Costco.
I'm Steve Brown with 2175. We've lived there since 1989. I'm here to report back to my wife.
Good answer.
I'm Dwayne Hildebrand, 2123 Jeppesen Acres Road. We live in the middle house, flag lot, right beside the big laurel hedge. And this is my wife, Carol. And I can't say too much more than what has been said, and I agree with most of it.
I'm tired of living on Kosovo.
Yes.
Anyone in the back not get a chance to introduce themselves? Mr. Halford?
Yeah, I live at 2320 Jeppesen Acres Road. And in 1973, when I built my house, they told me that in 2 years they were going to be putting curb and gutter in there and paving the street.
Nice.
I feel like I've been paying property taxes that are now pretty dang high.
Sure. Down here? Some folks in here.
Joe, we just live on the street. I'm not really good with, I only pay property taxes are so high, it's pay again.
I think we've lived in our house for
It's
7 years and our taxes have gone up $1,000 a year. So we're paying enough taxes to have a decent road.
Especially such a heavily trafficked road right in behind high school
Yeah,
is the
really.
main way for most kids to get there.
It is.
Well, hold, let's also, one more thing. Let's bring up the Sheldon, that gate at the back. When I went to school there from 2004 to 2008, that gate was locked until 4 p.m. So any students that lived in the neighborhood had to go around by the football fields out by your house and to the neighborhood. So it wasn't an easy pickup point for everyone that lives up the block up this way. As it is now, they don't close that gate at all. So everyone, why would they go around to the front of the school to pick up their children? They would pick them up in the back.
Totally.
So now everyone's doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now that's the majority of the traffic in the afternoon.
That's true.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with the kids walking down the road, that's fine, but then you incorporate
All those
7,500
cars.
parents coming to pick up their kids in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Wrong spot.
Okay. Great. So what I'd like to do, so did everyone get a chance to
Contacted the
introduce
school
themselves?
numerous times.
Okay.
They won't even email, they won't even answer.
Okay.
They won't even answer the neighborhood group. Why they won't do that.
So I'm John O'Brien, we live at 2225, been there since '93. I'm here because my wife sent me. She wants a sidewalk, she walks the dog every day. And the same thing, you know, we even put dry wells in for our runoff.
We
We
got
still
dry wells
pay
too.
for that stupid runoff. And then every time it rains, we have puddles, you know. big
Yeah.
puddles.
Puddles are
Totally.
ponds.
But,
They're fun. Put some coin in there.
But like all over town, right? And the worst part of my ride is in front of my house.
Yes. Totally. Totally.
So what I'd like to do next is just sort of run through what we're going to cover the rest of the evening, and then we'll take it from there. So the next thing we'd like to do is to review the history of the project that ended several years ago, to what we call the Urban Standards Project. So I'd like to kind of, Mark will share his understanding of what happened, and then we can have people just add to that, how they see it differently or things that they think we missed.
Can you talk a little bit about how the process works?
Yeah.
For people that haven't been here?
Right, Mark will do that too. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about the different options for moving forward. There's a few different options, like one of which is just to leave it the way it is, which I know it wouldn't be necessarily popular, but that's an option. So we'll talk about what the options are moving forward. We'll talk about what some design flexibility we have now that we didn't have several years ago, in terms of some of the street design issues that people raise. And then we'll try to get a sense of where the group's at on these things, and then talk about next steps. Okay?
What about funding?
That'll be part of the discussion. When we talk about the different options, that'll be part of the discussion.
Okay, so
I think you should come down here though, so folks down there can hear you.
So I got to talk from two documents, because this was in 2012. It's already 2017 when this last process. So if you want to pull these up, they're on the city's website under City Council agendas and minutes. So this is the council agenda for May 29th, 2012. That's when we went.
You may want to speak up a little bit, just so
Okay.
go back to here.
So in February of
28th in 2011, the city adopted its 6-year capital improvement program, and that included this project, Jeppesen Acres, in that project. That's what started it. So the council initiates a project by including it in its annual budget, and then we went through the public engagement process with the neighborhood. And normally what we would do is we would complete a design, we would bid a project for construction and get a firm handle on the cost. We'd have a public hearing to form a local improvement district, which would establish who's going to be in the district, who's going to pay, and what the costs are going to be. And then our council would form that district. We'd award a contract. We'd begin and complete construction. Then we'd tally up all the final costs, have another public hearing. The cost would be assessed by the city council, and property owners would get their bill. They could either pay it at the front end, or you could pay it over time.
So the initial design was done without consulting the people that live on the road?
Oh,
No, is this
we had
woman
several
over here?
meetings.
She has all the drawings that we put together. So.
And we had several meetings. We walked the street with the engineer.
Yeah.
Okay, before
Let me,
you drew it up.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me.
Okay.
I'll just read through this. So that's the normal process. Is the council initiates it. We form a local improvement district, build it, and people get assessed, and they can either finance it through the city or pay it at the front end. So the public process. The initial meeting was January 10th of 2012, and we talked about the goals and street classification and really how the process works. On February 25th of that year, 2012, we had as this woman said, we had the neighborhood walkabout. Provided the opportunity for staff and the community to talk about the issues. On March 5th, we had a second public hearing, and we talked about assessments and financing. On May 21st of 2012, we had a third public meeting to review the design report. And then prior to that last meeting is when people started to object, and we had over 25 letters of objection. So rather than go through the whole process in the expense of bidding a project, I mean, it was clear that people weren't supporting it. So we went to the council and we asked them if we wanted to go forward. And we gave them the option, because at that time, the design that we were proposing, and that's in this council report as well, it was 2 10-foot travel lanes, so sidewalks on both sides of the street, parking bays, street lights, and then a rain garden or a water quality facility on one side of the street. And in the council report, we said to reduce costs, and because there was interest at that time, we're recommending that if we go forward with this project, we just go forward with sidewalk on one side of the street. And that we would have a design exception to be able to do that. But even with that, the council was 7-0 opposing moving forward with the project, so that stopped the process. And we didn't go any forward with that. We just stopped where we were and moved on to other things. So are there questions or thoughts on?
Is there funding that's been available from the city? Is it in the process now?
No,
Is it even on the table?
No, that money's been reappropriated to other projects.
Sounds familiar. What's different now, 5 years later?
Well, unfortunately, construction prices have gone up significantly.
Yeah.
It was really, there was just more interest, like as Rob said, we got Tim, I think, is a new resident on the street, and there was more families, I guess, and more interest in a sidewalk. I mean, the other thing that has changed, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is the council initially set money aside out of the general fund, which is your property tax, which is about the only time property taxes have gone to road work. But property taxes go to what you pay in your property bill goes to police and fire, and well, for the city's portion, it goes to police and fire and recreation and planning. It doesn't go to public works, although a small part goes for park maintenance. The road fund is what you pay your gas tax and your registration fee. That's where the money comes from, the road fund, and that goes primarily to maintenance.
Haven't we, as residents on Jeppesen Acres, I believe Yarrow knows something about this, though, the wastewater?
We've talked about that a few times.
Okay, yeah, we've been paying years and years and years for this, and it's irrelevant.
You mean a stormwater fee?
Right, misappropriated funds?
Right.
Yes.
We were charged for something that we shouldn't have been charged for in the first place.
There's no place for the water to go when it rains.
Our French drains that we've created ourselves, paid for. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, if you,
I've
I
got
think
4
what
dry
the
wells
gentleman
like
said,
that. No, I know,
if you take care of your stormwater on your property, then you can get a reduced stormwater bill. But the stormwater bill isn't for your particular
It should be
property.
zero.
We all use the entire transportation system, and the stormwater fund takes care of the leaves on the streets, it's street sweeping. So it's not for just the benefit you would receive in front of your house, it's the benefit you receive from being
They don't sweep our
Right, they don't sweep our street either. We get no benefit.
It would be worse than
Especially need to pick up the leaves.
Not even twice, once.
Yeah.
So let's just take a couple more questions and comments about, just remember, right now, we're just covering sort of like what the process was before, because we're going to talk about what the options are for moving forward in a minute.
Why did this stretch of road fall through the cracks to begin with?
Well, it's not the only stretch. A lot of the roads that are unimproved in the city, and I think out of 500 miles of city streets, about 10% or about 50 miles are unimproved, like Jeppesen Acres.
Why did it happen?
It happened because properties were developed in the county on unimproved roads, and then they were annexed to the city, already developed. And the roads were unimproved. Whereas in new developments in the city, the developers are required to build the street system as part of the development process. So it's just it's a relic of the way development occurred in the city.
In the 50s, nobody cared.
Right.
They just ran a bulldozer out and scraped the street, and that was it.
Oh, over here.
Did you say that we had an unimproved street? Did I hear that?
That's
correctly?
what we define unimproved as, one that doesn't have an engineered road base, doesn't have a drainage system.
Okay.
Doesn't have curb and gutter.
Unimproved. So the city looks at it like it's part of the city, but the city never approved it, so they're not going to do anything for it? I'm just curious.
Right,
Okay.
So we look at, we just make a distinction between an unimproved, so that the east half of Jeppesen is improved and gets a higher level of service than the unimproved section.
And yet it's called a collector road.
Right.
Yes.
Right, so if you want to explain how the
A
city.
neighborhood collector road,
Right.
which the two don't make sense. One unimproved and the other one of the main arteries in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And I would like to just comment that we live on the part that doesn't even have the speed bumps. We're the bad children, I guess. We're being punished for somebody's inability to draw a consensus. They gave up because we didn't like the bays and the fancy trees and the in and outs
Exactly.
of those bays, which are such a waste of money and space.
We were given a choice, but yet we were not given a choice.
We weren't.
In the end.
We didn't have a choice.
It was this
We'll talk
or
about traffic.
nothing.
We're going to talk about the speed
There was
bumps
a-
tonight and what the possibilities are for your end of the street.
There was
in
a
regard-
thing to sign, what do you call them?
Letter of remonstrance.
No, where you go around and get everybody to sign it.
Petition.
Petition, excuse me, and that's where it ended. And I signed it, and I wish I hadn't. And I didn't know it was gonna end there.
You mean for the traffic calming on the east end? Is
For
that what you're talking
the
about?
effort to pave the road
Oh, got it.
Simple paving.
and to become in a civilized city.
So Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is for streets that are neighborhood collectors or other collectors or arterials, if they're unimproved, the city will initiate the process to get the improvement project going. But for local streets, we look to the property owners to push the city and petition for an assessment project. So that's why we came to that's how it got into the capital budget and why the city came to neighbors and started to get the process going.
So I had two questions. One was the street classification. If it's called a neighborhood collector, but it's largely used as a through arterial street, how can we change that usage in this design? But my real concern with the process last time was we were told over and over that only 2 sidewalks were possible. And it wasn't until I brought the last letters of remonstrance in that you, as I handed them to you, you said to me, well, we could do 1 sidewalk. And I said, well, we should have discussed this during the process. It was told over and over that wasn't even possible. And I'm not saying that we want 1 sidewalk, but we were told one thing, and until we had power, we were not allowed to be part of the process. And so I'm trying to hope that we, as neighbors, are allowed to be part of the process, despite the fact that we now have enough petitions, irrevocable petitions, that you don't really have to allow us to be part of the process. Will we be in there?
What is he talking about?
We were told that we could only.
No.
Okay. So why don't you let us talk about what the, John, why don't you let us talk about the options
Okay.
before we talk about what it designs.
Let's talk about what we can do now.
But my question is, will we be part of the process or not?
Yes.
Because we weren't
Good
last
question.
Yes, it'll be a process. So it didn't feel like a community, I don't know if driven is the right word, but where you didn't feel like equal partners with the
But
city.
we were told, no, until we brought those letters in. And then it changed right in the office.
So does anyone else want to talk about just like their understanding what happened, or should we move on to what the options are? So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, one option for moving forward is to just not do anything. That's always an option in transportation, right? The other option is, so the city, and people may be aware of this, the city has a maintenance overlay program. Is that funded out of the state gas tax? Right. And that's where we go and we will pave certain unimproved streets. So one option, and there's there's a queue likely, so we don't know how soon Jeppesen Acres could happen, but it would be in the next few years, is that the city could come in and just pave the street. And that's an option, is to just be part of the maintenance overlay program.
We did ask about that last time, though.
It wasn't an
wasn't
option.
on-
Right.
It wasn't a choice.
So the program's evolved over time.
Okay.
And
At that time, it wasn't an option. So if you're familiar with, last summer we did Fox Hollow up by where the Raptor Center is, that section.
Yep.
No, that was
Arcadia Road.
Arcadia, it was a couple years ago. Right, exactly. So this is a good candidate for that because it does carry more traffic, so it's likely it would rise near the top and happen in the next few years.
But there wouldn't be any drainage,
Okay,
and there wouldn't be
right.
sidewalks.
So we wouldn't be dealing with the drainage. We could, in terms of traffic calming, like if folks are interested in getting speed humps, or I think we installed.
There would have to be speed humps.
Okay, so what we would do is, if we did the maintenance overlays, then we would do a speed study after the maintenance overlay.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, somebody's gonna get killed if you pave over and you don't put speed humps.
Totally.
So we could do a speed study now.
Yeah,
If
I
it
mean,
qualifies
you see
now.
people go 40
Do it this time of year, not in the summer.
If it qualifies now, we'd be more likely able to just implement the traffic calming with the maintenance overlay. But if it didn't, we could come out afterwards. There's criteria we have to qualify for traffic calming. And it is that the 85th percentile speed has to be 5 miles an hour over the speed limit or more. So like, if you had 100 vehicles,
You'll get that.
I'm just trying to lay out what the criteria are. So if there were 100 vehicles over the course of a day, the 85th fastest would be the 85th percentile. So the 85th percentile speed would have to be 30, and at least half the vehicles would have to be speeding, and then we would just need support from the community, which I think,
But traffic's gonna get faster with the overlay.
Right, I hear that.
Which is why he's saying that they would do
Where
it
somebody got.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So we'll take that into account.
And why does that road have to go through in the first place?
Fire hazard.
That's the other
Fire
question.
department.
They have to be able to get access, right?
They used to be blocked off years
That's
ago.
why
It
they-
was.
that's why
Dead end
they-
road.
I mean, if I
About 20 years ago.
I got a dead end.
I know, me too.
We got cars that go around.
Why can't
That's
that be an
not one of the
option?
options that I'm going to describe to you. Is closing it is not an option.
How
So,
about a reroute towards Providence, for example, to make it less desirable to
So-
use it as a
Yeah.
through
That's
street?
the traffic law.
it's your prerogative to petition the city council for that, but that's just not, the city, I understand like the pain you feel about the Sheldon issue, and I mean, maybe there's something we can do to help in terms of communications to students and families. I understand that communications can only be effective to a point, but we rely as much as possible on a gridded street network. And so the more we cut traffic options off, it just channels more and more traffic on other streets where other people live. And
But they're
so
using
that-
our street, that's the
Right.
problem.
No, I
And
get
to
that.
alleviate the
So-
risk,
So having some traffic,
it'd be nice
more,
to have
having
some-
some more speed humps might help too. on your
sidewalks,
street.
so kids can actually be
So
safe.
we're gonna talk about that.
Great.
So there is the option, let me just say one more thing, and then I'll call on you, that it's possible that we could install sidewalk on one side along with a maintenance overlay. We need to do some more engineering feasibility into that. It would have to be set back from the street, and because otherwise we'd have to install stormwater, and then that you move more towards an urban standards project. And it would also, because it would have to be set back, it would be whichever side of the street it's on would be closer to someone's property line or right at the property line. So that's, and then to pay for that sidewalk, we would likely want to do an assessment project to pay for that, but of course it would be a lot less than the full assessment that you were involved with a few years ago. Let you, and then over here.
What if could there be stop signs put along Jeppesen from the improved side to the unimproved side? Because right where the congestion is, with all the helicopter parents picking up their kids. I mean, I used to have to walk home in the rain. This is ridiculous. I mean, you can't believe the traffic. But stop signs wherever there's a school exit.
So there's a national standard that is used for making engineering decisions around traffic engineering. It's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It lays out what conditions you can install a stop sign under. And traffic calming is not a condition for installing a stop sign. It has more to do with the traffic flow. If there was sort of a more, is it Providence? Is that the street that goes north-south? Yeah. There has to be more of an even distribution of traffic flow to warrant installing a stop sign. And my guess is that most of the traffic is just on Jeppesen and not on Providence.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it
definitely.
probably wouldn't qualify for a stop sign. So over here.
When we did this last time, they came in, and because the way the power poles are, so that side of the street, the south part of the street just kind of stays the same. But when they came in and they brought the stakes, and
Okay.
it was practically to my front porch.
And you're on the north
thinking-
side?
I'm on the north side.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking that's what's going to do in my house. And I look at John's sister, and it's going to go through her garage. You know,
Right.
if they were going to put sidewalks in, they would make her take down her garage. And so just because of the way that they were setting it up is that our side of the street was going to take the sidewalks. I'm great with that. I want the kids to be safe. But it just seemed like that our side was just going to get, reamed. And, these guys, I want them to have good stuff too.
Right.
But it just seemed like it was so extreme when they put those
Ventures in. And
yeah.
So just to make sure I understand, did it go north of the property line, what they were proposing?
No, they
Or is it
They
just
were
that
coming
general-
off the middle of the street,
Right.
and they were coming into my property to where they were gonna put, where the property line, I guess, was gonna start, I guess.
Property setback, I believe, is what it was gonna be.
That's what
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
talking.
okay, property
Yep.
setback. And so, literally, just because I'm thinking of Ann's house, her garage, they take her garage out because hers is that much closer to the road.
We typically stay within the street right of way.
I wonder if the
This
streets may be
is-
off.
I mean, I
The
wonder,
garage will be there.
did you come across the information?
Brian.
What's that? Yeah.
That would be pretty
So the
uncommon.
pavement is probably less than 20 feet wide, and the right-of-way through there is anywhere from 50 to 60 feet wide. So
Well, that was.
so what people view as their front yard is actually public
Not really.
right-of-way. So when we talked about the sidewalk, I mean, if a sidewalk's 5 feet wide, if it was on the south side, it was 5 feet wide, and then there was 5 feet of space between the pavement and the edge of the sidewalk, you could, I mean, tomorrow you can see what 10 feet looks like.
Well, I'm just saying, because the power lines, the power poles, obviously they're not gonna break that underground. So if they decide to put sidewalks in, which is great, it's gonna be on the north side of the street. It's gonna have to be.
Both sides.
Both sides.
Do you know, for the options before, did the side, were the utility poles in the street tree area? Is that how they designed it or not? On the south side? Does anyone remember?
I don't remember.
Right.
I think
But
they were
those
gonna
are
try to
streets that
just
have a
go
drainage
around them,
system.
and
Okay,
have
this
parking.
is-
and-
Right,
they
right.
weren't.
So why don't we talk next about what a street improvement project could look like. And so Mark explained what the process is in terms of the assessments and how that works. We have some fact sheets. I only printed out 12 of each, but for people that are interested in the way out, there's some fact sheets up here that describe it too.
I can make copies if anybody wants.
Well, those are, they're also all online.
Right, and they're online. We've already said the city would be willing to just have sidewalk on one side. And also we traffic calming, so the speed cushions, that's what they're called, that you see on the east side of Jeppesen Acres, those could be integrated into the project right from the start. So there wouldn't have to be any negotiation around that. Traffic calming could just be part of the project. In terms of like the rain gardens, setback sidewalks, parking bays, we haven't talked about that internally yet. So I mean, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but we're open. I think we're open to trying to find some common ground here.
So the parking bays, parking is optional. So I wasn't intimately involved in the process last time, but I can't imagine that we were trying to force parking on as part of the project.
Well, that was one of the plans.
Right. So the parking is completely optional. It's an extra cost, but it's optional in an assessment project. Dealing with the water quality now is, since the last time, the code has gotten even more stringent. So it's dealing with water quality through what we call green infrastructure. So rather than mechanically treating it through a stormwater vault at the end of the street, we try to treat it through a grassy swale along similar to what we came up with the last time. And the 10-foot travel lanes, that's generally the minimum. We made an exception, and I don't really want to, in Crest Drive. If you want to drive those are 9-foot travel lanes, and it's fine if you got 2 small cars, but it's very tight when it's larger cars.
Got to slow down when you pass people.
Right. Just kind of
You
go.
don't have to. Do you think these
But
teenagers are going to?
you can also go up and you can see all the ruts off the side of the road.
Yeah.
They are going to.
Could you please explain what you're talking about?
They are worse.
What I said on parking is optional. There's no requirement, if we have an assessment project, there's no requirement to have parking as part of that project.
Does anybody want parking?
Or even need it, really.
When you say parking, you mean those bays?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh. That just takes away parking space.
But just keep in mind, the street will have a curb on it. So it's not like, and then there may or may not be a sidewalk on whichever side of the street it is. So I mean, I guess in theory, somebody could drive up over the curb into their front yard, but it wouldn't be, like, right now, I imagine people just gravel along the side of the street. Do people park along that?
Some do. You're not legally allowed.
If you have like a landscaping crew come over or delivery, there's just not going to be that sort of flexibility.
I think we all just look at like the part that is paved,
Yeah.
and there are cars that park there, but there's
Totally.
still enough space for 2 cars to come and go.
It's
Right.
snug,
And I
but
think
it
we would
works.
rather have, I would honestly rather have 2 sidewalks like that, mirror that on the west side.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
Totally.
pretty much what we
And then just like
That's all we need.
10-foot travel lanes and then.
And that, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, those must be more than
We make
10
it work.
feet because they've got 2 cars on each side that are parked, and you can still get 2. So how wide are those? Are they 30-foot streets from curb to
Are you
curb?
saying because they do park on the east
Yeah.
side?
Well, they park on both.
Yeah, they used
Park on
to.
both
On both
sides.
sides. I'm not sure.
And
how
we
wide.
just slow down when we're having to pass each other.
Right.
We just slow down, and that actually traffic calming right there from that alone. It's good. It works.
I think just something basic like that would really answer a lot of the questions for many owners.
I think most of us
Just
would
mirror
just
it.
like the same thing that the
Yeah,
east side
it's that
has.
simple.
And are the sidewalks up against the curb there or
Yeah.
set back? So what Mark,
They might be setbacks.
they're a little stuck. So what Mark was getting earlier is that there's stormwater requirements now that weren't in place when that street was built. And so generally, often the way that we have to treat the stormwater at the surface level, like people, I'm trying to think of an example that
You
might
can't
be
just have it
familiar
go
with.
into a gutter anymore and down the street. And
Right,
off
it has to
the
be
street.
treated in like a surface level planter that will and then it'll infiltrate
Like
into
the
ground.
EMX stuff that was just built downtown.
Similar to what you see with along 6th and 7th,
Yeah.
and maybe even on Garfield now with MX. I mean, we use probably a little bit different design in a neighborhood than we would use. But is that, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
Mark.
trying to think of where in the neighborhood, there's some off of, over by some of those new housing developments by Bascom Village. Oh, Drake's Crossing, like off of north of Parkview and Lakeview, off of County Farm Road.
Those, yeah.
Some questions down
Well,
there.
wouldn't the swale approach be cheaper than cutting in a storm drain? I mean, running a storm drain line through?
Well, actually, you end up doing both, because it's not gonna, right. I mean,
It's the filter.
unless the soils are really well draining, like in the river.
And they're not.
And they're not.
Right.
Then they-
They're
what-
clay.
there's typically, it drains through that swale into a perforated
So
pipe, which
it's
then carries
a
it out.
two-step process.
Right.
treated.
Okay.
Right.
It's cleaner at
You
least.
mentioned overlaying curb on a sidewalk on one side. So how is the stormwater treated within that situation? Just a simple overlay in a sidewalk.
Well, when we do a simple overlay, because the street is already there and impervious, there's not a requirement to do any stormwater
So
treatment.
the stormwater just go where it goes now.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the issues with the maintenance overlays, is that it doesn't, they're cheaper, they're a lot cheaper, but it doesn't address the drainage.
You're gonna be doing it again in 15, 20 years.
Right,
and-
right,
With the maintenance overlay, would it still be considered an unimproved road?
yes.
So when it's an improved road, the city covers some of the maintenance costs. If we have an unimproved road, even with the overlay, they wouldn't be covering as much of the.
No, I mean, you still repair potholes, that's about it.
But as it degrades.
It's a joke.
Right.
It's not maintained.
I mean, in theory, the city could come in and get in the future with the maintenance, if the
Well, we
maintenance
can play
overlay
with
still exists, and do it again.
Yeah,
however many
exactly.
years.
Yeah.
There was a question down there, did that get answered?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right here.
What happened is, I've looked at other streets in the neighborhood, and there used to be ditches on either side of the road, and that's where the stormwater went.
Right.
Why weren't people stopped from filling it with impermeable materials to park? Why couldn't they have put in gravel that stuff could perk through? I mean,
That's a great question. I mean,
about 30 years ago.
what happens in urban areas all around the state is that people, they fill in the ditches for parking.
But, I
And
mean,
there's-
there were ways to fill it in that could still cause it to drain, but, I mean, nobody from the city drove by and went, gee, that wouldn't be a good idea. I mean,
All it takes is one person in front of their house to fill their house in with something, fill the ditch in with something solid, the rest of them are gonna overflow.
Right.
You know?
So the number, we looked up the number, of what the cost estimate was several years ago, and I think it was it $16,000 per?
18.
We've heard about.
18.
Yeah.
1642 is what we got.
Okay, so people got,
Right, here's what, I'll just tell you what we said from the city council was. The total cost was 1.27 million. The assessable cost share of that was 770,000, and the city share was 500,000. And to correct this gentleman over here, it was actually everyone paid the same amount. Everyone was going to be assessed 16,000. That was one of the changes in the code right before this project was that for residential properties, instead of going based on area and square footage, it would be,
No, for the whole.
and this assessment, if the properties were generally the same, it would be one unit cost, and for this project, 16,000 apiece.
What we heard, I mean, what I remember is that we were hearing closer to 20.
So
And
was that,
possibly over 20.
was that for any of the plans that they would choose, or is that for one specific plan? Or?
That was for the plan with sidewalk on both sides, 2 10-foot travel lanes, parking bays, and the water quality facility.
so, I think we recognize that it's a lot of money, and that, I mean, $10,000 is a lot of money too, but 16,000 is, it's another 60% more. So that there's probably no way that there's going to be support in the neighborhood for something like that. I think we're willing to look at, are there design options or other things that we can do to make it more affordable, but still recognizing that, it could be a $10,000-ish or more. But we could go back to the drawing board, see what we can come up with. We might not be able to come up with much, but we can certainly report back.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could relatively easily come up with a price where if we updated it to the prices we're seeing now, remove the sidewalk from one side and remove the parking bays, and that's pretty much, you can get a sense of what that would be.
But if
Still
there's
including the
nowhere
drain.
for the stormwater, we gotta have.
I know,
You gotta have sidewalks on both
That would
sides.
include storm drain?
So we could come up with one option with sidewalks on both sides and one with sidewalks on one side. Because I'm hearing from some people that would like to see sidewalks on both sides.
But we gotta have drainage, I mean, this is ridiculous.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just gonna happen again.
So what Mark was saying is that changes would be, we would take out the parking bays and.
We'd have an option, one with both two sidewalks.
Right, one sidewalk.
And then everyone would be split equally.
Right. I think what we could also report on is just like what some of the properties already have an assessment, the equivalent assessment paid, then some of the newer properties, we could report on what that amount.
Equivalent to what?
What you're talking about is 10-foot roadways with sidewalks on both sides.
Or one sidewalk.
No, okay, but irregardless, you're talking about a 20-foot road.
Right.
So there's no parking. If anybody parks in the road, you can't get by them. No parking on that street.
There's that other, it's gotta be wider than 20, it's gotta be 32.
Oh, yeah, it's probably 32 or so.
What is the, do you know the
That's not what you
width
said,
of
though. You
east
said
side of
10 feet on
Jeppesen
each
Acres?
side.
We're having two conversations.
I'm not
She
sure.
said- What we're saying is that
We
it
can
would be
report
20
back on
foot
that.
of road for this project.
You can both get.
What Tim is asking is the east side that's already improved, how wide would that pavement is?
So it
And
would
mirror
still
that.
narrow down.
Right.
You could just, I mean, from whatever it would cost, it would be more, obviously, if it were wider than 20 feet. So that's, I mean, whatever it is on the other end, whatever number we give you, it will be more expensive to do what's on the east end because it's a wider street.
Probably less.
So I think I heard earlier that if the east end's parked up and there are cars going both ways, they can't really fit, or they
No,
have to
you
go really
can't.
slow.
It's tight.
It can get 3 cars across it. There can be a car parking with 2 cars going by.
But is there parking allowed on both sides?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can
So-
get.
And they
You
get
do
cars
the
on both
weaving.
sides, but usually it's not.
Okay.
To make it work.
Okay.
Traffic and the access.
Okay. Right.
What is the width of the right?
Anywhere from 50 to 60 feet.
From the center of the road.
Not necessarily. That's the way roads are built today. That's not the way they've always been built.
And this one was never engineered, so who knows?
Right.
So my understanding that we're talking about 4 options then. We've got a maintenance overlay with traffic calming, which doesn't cost us anything. We have a do nothing option. We have an install sidewalk on one side with a maintenance overlay. Possible maybe pay for sidewalk that we pay for. And the 4th option is you guys are gonna engineer a couple things and bring it back to us that would have drainage. And that would be.
That's a good summary, huh?
Cool.
You know, something else we
That we
could
pay
do,
for.
the other thing we could.
Because you
Sorry.
also said earlier, sorry, just one more thing.
Sure.
And that was, you said that the money that the city originally had has been reappropriated.
Yep.
So, is there no money coming from the city this time?
No, we'd go through the budget, if there was interest, we'd go through the budget process again and.
So it's not part of the 2017?
We basically lost our spot.
2017 budget.
Years. He
So
said, they
this
said
wouldn't
years.
necessarily happen
There's
this
no one
year.
else in line though. So.
Right. In fact, we're the city.
It could be years.
There's no one else in line.
Could be a couple of years.
So if we have 4 options, ultimately,
You
do
get
we
more.
vote and it's majority rules, or how does that end up? Do we get down to go, no go?
So my suggestion is we gather some of this information and then come back probably in a couple of months, or it could be sooner, and report back and then get a sense of the group. But
But it's not happening this summer, it doesn't sound like.
the meeting's
That
over.
just happens in 72. Don't hold your breath.
And the other thing we can do is we can do a speed study on the street where we put down the tubes. You may have
It's
seen.
valid with our current.
Right, but my point is that if it qualifies for traffic calming now, there's a possibility we could just implement it when a maintenance overlay happens. It could happen at the same
Part of
time.
construction.
Right, potentially. I mean, or it could happen right after it, rather than having to do the maintenance overlay, do a speed study.
That would
Then
be
do.
just with the maintenance overlay, that would be necessary. Because if we do anything others, you can do it from the get-go.
If we do an urban
Well,
full
right.
project.
Yes,
right.
right.
So if I remember correctly, the last time you did it was in the summertime when you didn't have all the parents and kids driving up and down that
Speed study.
street.
Okay.
It'd be great to actually do that when it actually makes sense and not when it's convenient.
The parents drive
It'd be
really
great.
slowly because it's so crowded. They don't go fast. It's just volume.
I don't know. I walk my kid to the bus stop every day.
It's the
They go
students
pretty
with their
fast.
own
with coffees in hand.
So do students park on your street just out of curiosity? Is that an issue?
I don't think so.
Not on our side at least.
I think there might be like a handful that do park on the street, but it's mainly just
Pretty rare.
parents picking up their children.
Well, but inside of Jeppesen, there's no parking without the Jeeps, and you cannot park on the east.
But I don't think anyone actually
Okay.
patrols that.
Right, no.
There's a big part in the thing that says no parking by the school entrance, and it's always full of cars.
Close to the back of Sheldon, then it would just spill over to the side neighborhood.
It's like, come get me right there.
So
Drive around.
would it be possible for you to have some sort of site
There's already
vision
heavy
that
traffic.
put input
There's
and
already heavy
suggestions
traffic
into
over
like
there.
a Google document so we could be knowing what we're all talking about?
For 4 years, and that
I took notes. I can certainly write down what I heard and report back.
Or I can put together a Google doc.
Sure. I mean, if you want to do that, just email it to me and I can put it out.
It's true.
Did everyone get a chance to sign in? Okay.
John, one thing that you didn't talk about is who actually owns our street? Is it actually city property?
Of course.
Okay, because if I remember correctly, that you said something like at one point that it was never actually deeded over to the city.
No, I never said that.
Okay. Right.
We were told that they were going to do the paving and the improvements when they put it through.
Got it.
And we thought that meant that they would pay for it, but they meant they'll do it, but we'll pay for it.
Right,
That
okay.
was 35
I
years
know.
ago, right?
And since it was a long time ago, it doesn't matter
Doesn't matter.
anymore.
Yep.
Yes.
I'd like it to be known that our biggest concern, for most of us, I think, is a safety thing. And it's like, I don't mind the kids walking down my street. They're really pretty neat kids we have at Sheldon. And so my concern is, because I see those kids bobbing and weaving from some of the cars, if there's water, if we have standing water, those kids are, jumping all over the place or getting soaked. And so my concern as a mom, as, somebody who lives in the street, is making sure that those kids are safe.
Yep.
Yeah.
The water drainage, that's important, and all that other stuff, but our kids have to be safe.
Totally.
Well, and not just the kids, I hate to walk along there.
Well, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're a taxpaying citizen. It's hard to walk on your street.
You can't walk on our street. You have to walk in the middle of the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a mess.
So we could aim to get back to you by sometime in March. And did this location work well for people?
Yeah.
Thank you to Tim Duncan for hosting it.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
We got your information on the sign, and so we'll do another postcard mailing since that seems to work pretty well. But I'll also send an email out to folks, so just to give an extra reminder. I think there was a question over here.
What kind of formula is used that determines what is our responsibility for paying versus the city?
It's codified, it's in chapter 7 of the Eugene Code. It's generally, it depends on the functional classification of the street, whether it's a local street, a collector, or arterial. Generally, it's, what's assessed is curb, gutter, and sidewalk, storm drainage, street lights, street trees, and 10 feet of paving on either side of the street. So for a 20-foot street, it'd be the whole thing. For a larger street, it would stop at 10 feet. And then the city pays for...
Excuse me, can't hear you.
Okay. He's asking what's assessed. How do you determine what's city and what's assessed? And it's in the Eugene Code in Chapter 7, and it's fairly complicated, but it's generally what's assessed is curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and a portion of the paving. The city pays for intersections.
What about stormwater?
Stormwater, if it's part of the part of the project, it's assessed. If it was a bigger system, then we'd pay a portion of it. So if it was going to convey water from another area through this street and the pipe had to be bigger, we'd pay for the upsizing of the pipe. But it's not a, we have the most complicated assessment code that I'm aware of.
Can we have somebody from the city on a couple rainy days? Can we just ask them to just drive down our street? Like if we have 2 days of rain, they'll get a really good idea. of what we're dealing with.
You won't see any of those potholes.
Well, no.
Right, you'll feel 'em.
You'll feel them, but it's not the pothole
There'll
thing,
be
but they'll just be able to
Sides of the road.
understand the drainage a little bit.
Yes,
Not,
totally.
you know, I'm not,
It is.
just to give them
I
an
can shoot
idea.
video for you if that's helpful, so you can send it to you. So you don't even have to drive it.
Pure fine.
I have a little follow-up question.
Yeah,
You said
exactly.
we are assessed 10 feet of pavement,
I got
and
plain
then after
cameras.
that, or on each side, so a 20-foot road, we would be assessed the whole amount. If we were to go with something equivalent to the east side of Jeppesen, would that then mean that the city would cover the difference? As in, say, the east side is 30 feet, and we're covering 20 feet, is that 10 feet then covered by the city? So would it cost us the same to go with an equivalent to the east side versus?
If that 10 more feet was for a center turn lane, the city would pay for it. If it was for parking, it'd be assessed.
So bring us some proposals.
What's that?
Bring us some proposals.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So you might have already known about, so the council, Councilor Clark requested that we have a work session on this whole discussion of, his focus was more about development occurring on unimproved streets, and I think Gillum Road is what was driving it north of Ayers Road, because there's a lot of development, the road's unimproved, there's more traffic, more kids, more pedestrians, more bikes. And so he's asked, and his peers on the council have agreed to have a work session on unimproved streets. So it was scheduled but got bumped, so I think that'll happen sometime in February.
One way to check, if you just Google City of Eugene tentative working agenda, it'll take you to a PDF that has the city council calendar. So just check that periodically, sorry.
Work sessions are open.
Right, and they're also on Metro TV. I can also try to, when that gets rescheduled, I can email out to your.
That'd be cool.
Is that what you told me was on the 25th?
Right.
So it got postponed a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But if you go to the agenda summaries for the 25th, you'll see the staff report, which is pretty much what my presentation is going to be. So if you're interested in, it'll give you the history of how these things, how we got to where we are. What's an unimproved road? What's an improved road? What's a county road? What's a local access road? And then all the whole thing about assessments.
Any last parting thoughts or questions?
Are we going to be able to get the email addresses from all the people from you, or do we have to gather them? Is the city the only person who gets that, or can the neighborhood have them?
Well, you know, what I would do if that question hadn't been asked, I would put everyone's email address in a BCC, so you wouldn't see each other's email address. I'm happy to just put all your email addresses in a two, so that, I mean, I guess what I don't want is for this to be like you could always remove me from it if you want to discuss amongst yourselves. But sure, and is that, as long as people are okay with that?
I would just like to help facilitate interchange between neighbors.
So for people like,
Xerox, we can Xerox.
sure, we can just make a copy right now.
But it has to be okay with the
He's already
Right.
started a list that's going around, so.
People are okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Does
So either way.
Anybody not want their email shared?
Did you give your email or mine?
Go nuts.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I won't share with Expedia or Marriott.
Thank you. Yahoo.
I hear from them a lot, so. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. Thanks again to Tim. And I really, really appreciate how much interest people have in this for whatever reason. So, thanks again for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being there.
And remember, there's some copies of those fact sheets up here on the counter, so feel free.
Yeah.